Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of That Proud Black Woman Show. And you know what we're doing this time? The theme is Dare to be Different. And I've been bringing you awesome guests with every week, every time I bring you fantastic people. One thing that I would like for you to do, is all the guests that I bring, please, I would like your feedback. What did you learn from their journey? Let us know. Leave a comment either here on live, or you can also go to Instagram or Dark Proud Black Woman and leave your comments. Also, if you have people in mind that you want me to interview or you want to me to interact with, please, I would love your suggestions because that's how we can all learn. The important thing is every time I go back to watch these shows, I also by myself learn one thing or two that I also add to my life and I learn from it. So please let me know the people that you like to see on this show. So for those of you that are OGs on this show, you know how we do it. You know how we make attendance on this show. Where are you watching us from? Is it in Canada? Is it in a different province than I am in? Because currently I'm in Ontario. Leave a comment and let us know. Just give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching us from. So today is another beautiful Saturday. And yes, I have yet again another fantastic, well-achieved woman that is here to share experience, to share, the things that she has learned in her journey, to share it with us and how she has been able to thrive, how she has been resilient throughout, either when she was back home in Nigeria or now that she's here in Canada, how many things she's been able to achieve, the support that she got, and the resources that she was able to use to her advantage. So thank you so much for joining and watch out for my guest. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, Fikemi. It's so great to be here. How are you?
I'm good. How's your Saturday going?
So far, so good. I just
So
came in
far,
from
so
a
good.
meeting and that was beautiful.
Yes. I know you said you just came in, and I really appreciate you being able to make it here. I know that it took a lot to be able to squeeze out this little time and to honor our invitation today. So I really appreciate you coming here today. So for those of you that are wondering, who do I have here today? Her name is Modupe Ehinlaiye. She's a fantastic individual. She is a lawyer. And before you say anything, I know I bring a lot of lawyers on my show, but it is not planned. It's just people that are achieving a lot that I notice that this person is doing really good. And I reach out to them and they are graceful enough to say, yes, I can come on the show. So Modupe is one of them. She's doing good. She's also a talk show host. For those of you that don't know, just go Google it right now, Talk with Mo. It's a fantastic platform that brings together people to share their experiences and their lifestyle and things like that. I remember before I reached out to you, I think I mentioned one episode that I watched. I actually saw it on another person's platform, and it was so touching. I remember crying. I believe I left a comment in there and I said, who's slicing onions? Who's slicing onions? I'm not crying, but it was so touching because that's how much of an impact that your show is having on people. And seeing that, wow, people have been through a lot, but they've come out on top, which was why I reached out to you. So you are a fantastic individual. And I want you to just share a little bit about yourself. Like, what are the things? Now we're not going to the serious part about your background. We're just talking about fun things that you like to do. Let's just start on a very, easy ground.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Fikemi. That's such a gracious introduction. And thank you for your kind words. I am Modupe Ehinlaiye. I'm a simple girl. I'm a mother of 4 adults. I have a son-in-law, myself, my husband and I, we have a son-in-law now. And what I'm a boring person. I'm not, you hardly find me out there in public now that because of the talk show, lots of people are inviting me to stuff, wanting me to be out there, but I am an introvert and it's taken a lot for me to go out and be in the public eye. I love to cook. I love to bake. I love just cuddling and watching videos. I'm very much a homebody. When I venture to go out, you will find me on the trails. I love to go hiking. And so I think those are the fun things about me. And I love to travel when I can afford to. I think traveling is very educational, and
Okay.
it's not just for fun. It's a shame many people just travel for the fun of it, but there's a lot to be learned through cultures of the world, through meeting people of different races and backgrounds. There's so much to be learned. And so I've learned quite a lot of things traveling and meeting people, making friends, making connections. And yeah, that's all there is to know about me.
That's awesome. So two things I picked up from what you were saying. One of it is you said you like to cook, you
Yes,
like to bake. So I'm inviting myself.
I love
when
that.
is the when is the next cooking and when is the next baking? So I have a lot of empty bowls in my house, so I
Say
can
the
come
word.
and say hi.
Just say the word and you're welcome. You're welcome. I love to
Okay,
entertain.
so
I love entertaining. So yeah.
just so you know, there are witnesses here that I've written that down, just in case I call and said no, no food, so I can come back and report to
We
my
will need
audience.
we will need their services.
And the second thing you talked about, we traveling, that you like to travel, but not just for the fun of it, but for education. And it brings me back to one of the videos that I watched where you went to Australia. First of all, kudos to you for traveling that far, because anytime I hear Australia, it's like the end of the world. Like it's very long journey. But
Yeah.
when I watched it, you interacted with so many people, and not just for the fun of it, just because you wanted to be on your show, but you were actually touching on important points. For example, indigenous people there. I watched one that you were talking to them, asking them questions and all of that, and it was very educational. So it's not only educational for you, it's also educational for those of us that are viewers, because so many things I didn't even know there were indigenous people in Australia. And I got to find out from there. And I'm like, oh, and they are not light skinned or white skinned, they are dark skinned
Very
as
dark
well.
skin
So that's
majority.
very, yeah. Usually when I travel for fun, to rest, to have fun. I don't ever think about that part of it, that's education and talking to people just to find out their own perspective on things. And that's really awesome what you do. So, for those of you joining us, you know what to do. Leave a comment in the comment section to mark attendance. Where are you watching us from? Is it here in Canada? Is it overseas? Let us know the city, the place, and also what time is it over there? Right now, we are past 12. So we
Yes.
want to know if you're in Australia as well. Let us know, because I know you people are like 12 hours ahead or something. Let us know in the comment section. So now, let's go a little bit to your background. What
Yes.
was your background like? What was your growing up before the professional part of you? What was it like?
That's interesting. I won't talk about my childhood so much, but it was quite foundational to me, and I only talk about it to give people hope and to restore hope. I was born out of wedlock. My parents were not married, they were dating at the time. My mom was 15 years old when when she got pregnant with me, and she wanted to abort the pregnancy, but for some reason she couldn't. And my father at the time refused for her to abort the pregnancy. So I was born, but they they couldn't get married because she was from a different part of the same country, which
Oh,
in today's world seems very absurd because now we have interracial marriages, and even within the same country, it was a lot of headache. They couldn't get married because one parent refused to give their blessing, and my father decided, okay, if you will not give your blessings, then there's no point, to getting married. So I grew up in that space, but the challenge there was that I grew up being called the bastard child to my face. more oftentimes, and even in my hearing, well into my adolescent years, where I could hear and people pointing at me, the bastard child. So right from a very young age, I was determined to make a difference. I could not change the fact that I was the bastard child, but I could change that narrative for how my life turns out. I wanted to be the bastard child that was making a difference. And to, yeah, and so that was always at the back of my head in everything I did growing up. Now, fast forward to um, getting into law school and all of that. I got married just as I was getting into law school, and that was because we had waited to wed, but there was this long strike of the educational workers in Nigeria, popularly known as the ASU strike. And we were home for over about 18 months, actually. And
Wow.
so we got married. We got married, and then I went back to law school. So I had my first daughter before I went to law school, and so I was pregnant with the second one in law school. And so law school was pretty challenging, but thank God did the exams passed. But I did not want to practice law in Nigeria.
Okay.
I was very adamant I did not want to practice law, and so I went into banking. I served. I did my youth service uh, in a bank, and I stayed on in the banking industry. And while I was there, uh, I worked in different departments, but ending up in marketing and then eventually becoming a branch manager. But while I was there, I saw a lot of honest, hardworking businesses, small businesses, and the banks will not give these businesses loans to grow because one, they did not have the collateral needed to get the kind of loans they needed to access to make their businesses great or bigger, or they did not have the history with the bank. But I knew these people, and after a while, I decided to set up a microfinance company to cater to small businesses because I felt their pains and I wanted them to grow. I knew they had integrity, they had character, and they were hardworking. I knew they would not fail. And it didn't matter how much you told the bank about all this.
Yeah.
They lent money, they loaned money rather to the big cops, and the small guys were left out. And so I wanted to do something about that. And it was very satisfying to see that in a small way, I contributed to the growth of so many businesses. Many of them are still very much in touch with me today. And it's beautiful to be able to do that. And so that was how um, my background was growing up. And then I hope that answered the question. But then
That more than answered my question. Now I'm gonna piggyback back on what you talked about the microfinance bank. So this
yeah.
was something that you embarked on your own, or was it in association with some other people? And then what was the experience like? I know that a lot of times most of us want to do good, but then people that will make you regret it would also come along. So were they those kind of people? Were they challenges? Just give us a little bit of that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're looking for excuses to not do good, there'll be tons of them. There'll be tons of excuses to not do good. And those excuses can hinder you from moving forward as well. So, yes, there
Definitely.
were some bad apples amongst the clientele that we carried. But I'll say that the good ones far outweighed the bad, such that the bad did not have an imprint on the business. And it was a dream I wanted to do, and I spoke to my husband about it. And if you're married, you must have the same visions with your spouse. And
Absolutely.
if your visions are not aligned, um, I want to encourage you to talk about it. It's always important, even if you're going to go it on your own, to have had that talk about it. Don't go about it in a sense of I can do this and I don't need his or her help. Yes. So at the time, my husband was also in banking. He understood what I wanted to do. He had his fears, but he supported me and said, "Yeah, go ahead if that's what you want to do." So I went into it headlong, and yeah, there are no regrets. I'm glad I did, and yeah. So if there's
Oh,
if anyone is thinking to start out a venture,
yeah.
I would really encourage them to just really pray about it. If they are married, speak to their speak to their partners about it, and then take the bull by the horns. Because really, I truly believe that if you want to move forward, you have to be bold to move forward. You have to be courageous, and you have to be um, very, very, I think focus is the word. You have to be focused to just say, I am going to move forward and move forward. I mean, not, you have to also be informative. You have to get a lot of information.
Information
Do
is
your
key.
research. Don't just be stupid and say, I'm going to go forward and lose everything you have. Pay attention, do your research, and if everything looks well, but there are challenges that will come, go ahead, because life is filled with challenges. It's going to be there with or without you doing that venture. So, yeah.
So, in other words, two heads are better than one. It makes more sense for you to go into a venture having the like a backup or a support of, even if it's not your a spouse, in case you don't have a spouse, but share your view with someone that's close to your heart. And if things start going bad, you know that you have someone to talk to that can encourage you to keep going and all of that good stuff. So now I'm going to again piggyback to what you talked about, that when you went to law school, you passed the exam, but you were not interested in practicing. Can
Yes.
you tell us why?
Yeah.
Because I've heard that a lot when people will be, I'll go to law school. Is this something that my parents wanted me to do? So let me just do it and give you your certificate and go buy my own stuff. Or is it like, just let us know why you said you didn't want to practice law and you went into banking
That's a
instead.
good question, Fikemi. Yes. Um, I wanted to study law, and I think many of us grew up watching shows that impact us one way or the other. I watched a lot of. My father worked with the Nigerian police, but the Secret Service arm. So he worked with what is now called the SSS. It used to be called National Security NSO at the time when I was growing up, but it's now called SSS. So my father worked um, in that organization, and so growing up, and I'm very close to my father, and so growing up, I knew a lot about espionage and spy, and so it was intriguing for me. I wanted to be in that world, and so my dream was to be a criminal lawyer. I wanted to bail out the criminals. So because I just felt there's some good in everyone, and the criminal became a criminal because maybe society let them down. I thought I could reform criminals, and so I wanted to bail them out and reform them. I had these lofty ideas, but reality is different from your imagination, and so I think it's during law school you do the court attachment in Nigeria, and so I saw firsthand what that looked like, what the lawyers who are popularly called the charge and bail lawyers had to go through, what the legal system looked like. And there was a particular case on the first week while I was there that left really a huge impression on my heart on what the law should not be. And that really put a bitter taste in my mouth, and I didn't want anything to do with it. At that stage I was just like, I wish I never studied law. My goodness, have I made a big mistake? Oh my goodness. So you can imagine what the case would have looked like to have had that kind of impact on me, and what the future looked like. So I came out of that experience, all I wanted to do was just give me the certificate. I want nothing to do with law. And
Oh,
so I was adamant I did not want to practice law. And that was the reason I didn't practice. Now, other people's reasons might be different, but that was mine. So the fantasy I had about being a criminal lawyer, it all died right there. And yeah, I didn't want anything to do with law until I came back to Canada.
To Canada. Yeah, we're gonna get back to the Canada one shortly. So now, when you decided, you know what, I'm not studying law, did it have any impact on your parents or your family? Like, what do you mean you're not studying law? You're not practicing law? Like, did they have any conversation? Because in the Nigerian home, you either be a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer. So would they say, how dare you go all the way through to law school and then say you're not practicing? Did that ever come up?
That never came up, interestingly, because at the time, remember, I was already married. And
No. Okay.
so I was sharing all of my emotions with my husband, and he supported me. And shortly afterwards, we did the youth service, and I worked in a bank. So it never came up, why you're not practicing law. I think maybe if I did not get employment, maybe
Yeah.
the conversation might have come up to say, go and practice your law, but I don't think that ever came up. This is the first time I'm thinking about that. It was never, it was never
An
up for
issue.
discussion.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. I was quite, yeah, it never came
Okay.
up.
That's awesome. So, for
Yeah.
those of you joining us today, if you have not marked attendance, you know how we do on this show. Go into the comment section, write your name, where you're watching us from. What time is it over there where you are? Let us know. And we have a beautiful guest here today. Her name is Modupe Ehinlaiye. She's a lawyer and she's also the host of Talk with Mo. Go Google it and see it on YouTube or on Instagram. And it's a very fantastic platform that you would want to identify with. So now let's talk a little bit about you then transitioning from Nigeria to come to Canada. What made you say, you know what, I'm moving to Canada? And was Canada what your first destination? Because for a lot of people, especially for me, I've been in the UK, I've been in Ireland before I came to Canada. So was that your trajectory, or and then why did you make that decision to relocate from Nigeria?
Yeah. That's another interesting question, Fikemi. I never planned to leave Nigeria. Never. Uh, Canada came about. My husband had a colleague who had his family in Canada, and this we're talking about 2001. Um, Things were pretty good. We were both doing well in respective career. We're going up the ladder pretty quickly too. So things were good. And he had this colleague whose family was in Canada at the time, and so he went into his colleague's office, and on his colleague's screensaver, there was this home that was showing on the screensaver. And so my husband goes, "Oh, that's a beautiful home. Where is that?" And his friend or his colleague goes, "Oh, that's Canada. That's my home in Canada." And my husband said, "Oh, you have a home in Canada," and you know how the discussion goes. And they chatted up, man, and he said, "But why?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing it for my family. They are there." And that intrigued my husband. He talked to me about it. I'm like, I can't split. So his wife and kids are in Canada. No, I can never do such a thing like that. No, that's not for me. So my husband was like, "Well, you know what? We can think about it." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." A few months later on, I usually would interview NYC students and some junior officers in the bank where I worked. I usually was on the interview panel. And I was on the interview panel, and in came this young girl who claims she made a first class in computer science from a very popular university in Nigeria. And so she came in, we looked at the resume and we're like impressed on paper. And she came in and she couldn't string together a complete sentence. And I was devastated. I was devastated because on paper, she was a stellar candidate. And I thought that must be a misnomer. And, of course, she wasn't hired. And then for the whole of that week, the kind of candidates that came in to be interviewed were nothing to write home about. So I went home to my husband. I said, this week I've had this challenge of interviewing people, stellar candidates on paper, nothing to write home about when you meet them. Is this the kind of education our children would have? And some of them went to private school. Is this what we're going to be up against? And so he said, I've told you about Canada and you don't want, so what do you want me to do? So
It's
at that point,
opportunity
I
now.
started to think about it more seriously. I said, okay, fine, put in the application. Let's apply. And we applied, I think this was in 2001 or so. We applied. And we didn't hear back until 2005 to 2006, actually, around January. We didn't hear back. And when we had, I think that was in 2005. I'm not too sure about the timelines. It's been a while. So forgive me if I'm going up down. But at about that time, we just got a call, or was it a call or an email? We got contacted that we should go for our medicals and that we didn't need to travel to no Ghana, nothing. People were going to Ghana at the time. And we thought, oh, this must be a scam. They don't want us to go to Ghana. Now they want us to go and do medicals. But we went ahead and we did the medicals anyways. And within a month or so, they asked us to come and pick up our passports and that it was ready. It was shocking to see that, well, it's ready. But at that time, I wasn't ready to go to leave because I had just been made a branch manager in the bank where I worked. And this was me. I've taken time off work to birth 4 children. And I thought, well, I would have been higher if I wasn't taking maternity leave, And so I wasn't about to give up again. Um, what I considered a demotion in my career to go and sit in Canada and do nothing and just. So I was quite upset about it. Many people might have been overjoyed to receive that, but for me, it was very conflicting. What do I do? I'm at this crossroads. And so we sat on the visas until my husband looked at it and said, it's going to expire in December of 2006. So we should be going. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go until you go. You go find us a house. And so I put my terms. I just wanted to make everything impossible so that if this thing worked, then I'm like, yay. But that was what happened. And here we are today.
That's fantastic because hearing this from you puts a little bit more of perspective because I've had friends that they tell me, "Oh, I have my PR, but I'm not ready to move yet." And what comes to my mind is, "Why did you apply?" Because
Yeah.
I usually wouldn't see the reason. Like, so why did you apply if you knew that you were not going to want to relocate? So you putting in those words kind of makes sense that okay, because truly it's a lot to sacrifice, especially for someone of your caliber that has finally reached that stage where everything is beginning to look great,
Yeah.
and now you have to abandon and then start from the beginning and then relocate with your children and all of that. So that kind of makes sense because before it didn't to me. I was like, why did you apply? You could have allowed somebody else to,
Yes.
take that spot and stuff.
Spot.
So that's awesome. So now, when you came over, how did it then work out for you? Because I know that that would have had some kind of mental stress on you as well, especially with 4 children, which I want to believe at that time were probably way younger, couldn't fend for themselves. Or so, how were you able to, balance your life, moving to a new country, your children, and then getting a job and all of that?
It was pretty difficult. That was the first time we were living apart as a family, apart from my husband. It was difficult emotionally, difficult physically because there were no domestic staff, and I've never been used to not doing anything. Even when I worked in a bank, I was trading. Trading, I meaning I had stores. Hi, Toby from Nigeria. I had stores. I would import different items, grocery items, which I'll supply to the market. So I was really busy all the time. So coming here and not having anything to do, I was besides myself. My kids then were between the ages of 2 and 13. Now they are between the ages of 19 and 30. So you can imagine how young they were. We've been here 17 years. They were quite young. And so I was the mom, I was the hairdresser, I was the tailor, I was the counselor, I was the cook, I was the gardener, I was the driver. It was exhausting physically. And when you come, people are telling you, there's Kumon, there's Sylvan, there's ballet, there's tennis, and you don't want to feel like that parent who's not doing what they ought to be doing. But when I look back now, what I would have told, what I can tell my younger self at the time is, don't feel pressured into doing all of those things. And that's my advice for any young mother here. Don't feel pressured to do all of those things. If it's one or two, choose an extra curriculum. Face it, they don't have to be in tennis and ballet, and it's physically exhausting for the kids themselves. My kids were in swimming, they were in ballet, they were in gymnastics, because everybody was doing it, and I didn't want to be like the mom who wasn't doing that. And so it was very challenging. Um, After about a few months, in 2007, I decided to do business analysis. So I went into a school for business analysis just to keep me busy. And I thought, oh, I'm going to work as a business analyst. And so I did that, graduated, and my teachers then, a husband and wife duo, told me there was the professional arm of business analysis where you get the certification. And there weren't a lot of people in Canada at the time who had what they call CBAP, Certified Business Analysis Professional. And we were about 30 in the class, and they approached me and they said, we think you can do it. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I don't even want to do business analysis, but if you think I can. So I registered, and they told me they were also sitting for the exam. So that was an incentive for me to go. So I read up, and the three of us went and wrote the exam. My teachers, two teachers, and myself. The results came out. My teachers failed and I passed.
Ooh,
And
okay.
until date, it's a joke between the three of us that we were your teachers, now you become the. So I passed, and I had the CBAP designation. But because my husband will travel back and forth, it did not really leave room for me to work in any organization, because when I tried to, within 2 weeks, I got called to school. My
Pick up the
child
children.
scraped her knees. She was bleeding. They're taking her to the clinic. I had to come. Another child fell, broke her tooth. I had to go. So, and then the following week, my husband was coming into town. I had to go and tell my boss I needed to take time off. So I just thought, you know what? I have a reputation. I do not think I want to mess my reputation up by just being at work for the sake of working and taking time off whenever. I didn't want to do that. So I stopped and I stayed back home. And while I was doing that, I decided, well, I'll go and do my master's in business admin. So I went on to Richard Ivey School of Business, University of Western Ontario. I did my my MBA. And after graduation, my husband was still not in Canada. After graduation, I decided to start a mortgage broker, because I thought I can do mortgage broking from home. It's just like the small microfinance that I did. So I started a mortgage broking business. I became a mortgage agent. And then while I was doing that, a lawyer that was supposed to close on one of my deals, it was a refinance that I knew that shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to close. I've been giving her deals, and I said, please, can you close this? It's really urgent. The client just called me. They need to do this urgently. And she said, oh, you won't understand. You're not a lawyer. This thing takes time. And I felt slighted. because of the word she said, "You're not a lawyer, you won't understand." She could have just said, "I don't have the time, I'm busy, I can do it tomorrow." But she said, "You're not a lawyer, you don't understand." Totally uncalled for. But I didn't banter with her. I just said, "Oh, okay, great. No worries. Let me try another lawyer." So I passed the deal on to another lawyer and just cut her off. But that day, I called my sister-in-law in Nigeria and said, "Go to law school, go and get me my transcript. I'm going to study law in Canada. And I'll show this
Okay.
lawyer I am a lawyer." So that was how I got into back to law school. And yeah,
So you took that person provoking the lawyer out of you.
it was
Okay.
personal. I took it very personal. It's like, how dare you?
Oh,
How
that's
dare
that's
you?
that's that's awesome. And you've been, even though you came to Canada, you've been at home. You were able to achieve a lot of things because you said, "I don't want to be at home." Even though you're not working, I could go back to school. I could study this. I can do that. And within those years, you added a whole lot more to your life and to your CV. So how did all of this then help you when you decided to, maybe when your kids were a little older, you wanted to transition back uh, into the working industry? How did all of those help you?
It helped me a lot. First, going to do my master's was a twofold. It was to achieve two things. One of it was to understand the corporate world in Canada because it was an executive MBA that I did, and we had a lot of vice presidents, presidents of corporations in the class. So I chose that program on purpose because I wanted to understand the psyche of the corporate world. If I'm going to work in the corporate world in Canada, I wanted to know how they think and how they react. And there's no better way to know than to see them every day. They're your classmates. You're going to connect with them. They're going to be real. We're classmates. We're all on the same level. And so I thought that would be a good platform to understand them and the psyche. And so that I achieved that. And then the next one was, of course, was to get the knowledge there. And so both experiences for me, or both the two purpose actually came to bear, helped me when I started practicing law, going to law school. Now you are better able to manage with the kind of people you relate with the kind of clients. There's a bit, I don't know if I should call it respectability, but when they see that you have a master's degree from a renowned university, they many of their preconceptions begin to scale off because I live in a predominantly white community. And so setting up an office here, many other lawyers, Nigerian lawyers, said, "What's wrong with you? You're never going to get a client." And I thought, "No, I cannot run away from where I'm living and be commuting so far just to get clients." I'm like, if they don't, it's their loss." And I opened shop and I was surprised that the clients came in, and I burnt out in my first year because I was overworked. And the reason I burnt out was because I was trying to prove a point that I'm going to break even. I took a loan. I opened the practice on the 1st of April, 2014. And I prayed to God that I wanted to pay back that loan within 1 year. I started working on the 7th of April of that year. And by October of that year, I was able to pay back the loan of 20,000 that I took to set up my office through the help of God. I got a lot of clients, and I was open to, I just contacted a lot of lawyers and I said, "Please, can I shadow you? I'll be called to the bar soon. I want to see, I'm not sure what area of law to practice. I wanted to do family law or criminal law. I wanted either of them." And so I shadowed people in those areas. But the family law stood out more to me. And I decided I'll go through family law. But while I was shadowing, I learned a few things. Um, and so when I began mine, I prayed and I just got this idea. Write a letter to the shelters. And I'll share this with a lot of lawyers. Write a letter to the shelters around you and tell them that you're willing to give them time to volunteer and just give information to the women. And I told them, I said, information is key. Many women in the shelter will not be in the shelter if they had the kind of information I'm going to be providing to them. And so I did that. I wrote a letter to the shelters and I was surprised at the response. The response was they had never seen lawyers willing to give. And they were happy to work with me. And they were taking me up on the volunteer hours I was willing to give them. But interestingly, I never got to volunteer. Because after that, all they were doing was giving me calls. And we have a client for you. We have a client for you. We have a client for you. So I kept getting clients. I never volunteered. But the proposition was that I was willing to volunteer. Remember? Mm-hmm. And so that's, for me, lawyers should be open. Not just lawyers. Everyone should be willing to serve and put themselves out there. Think outside the box. Right? Many lawyers are doing Google search, what do you call this? Search engine optimization, attending networking events. You can actually get more if you look into your community. There are lots of food banks, and many people go to these places who might need your help. The fact that they are at the food bank does not mean they won't have money to pay you. If they don't, there's legal aid. So think outside the box. Go to church events. Put yourself out there. If there's soup kitchens, go in and serve at the soup kitchens. You make more connections there because you'll be surprised that the people coming to serve at the food kitchens are CEOs of organizations that might need you to register something for them, and from there, word of mouth. And because you're serving, there's a credibility that they attach to you immediately, that you must be a good person to be serving, right? That is what your adverts cannot buy for you. And so that was how I got clients from day one.
That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. So now let's just talk a little bit. So before you came to Canada, you were like, you know what? I don't want to practice law. That's it. The future for law is all on the wraps. And then you came to Canada, and then somebody had said something that triggered, you know what?
I'm telling you
that I can do it. So at that point, when you decided, you know what, I'm going back to my roots, I'm going back to the practice of law. And you said, okay, I'm going to shadow these two people. My first love, which is criminal law, and then family law, and then you finally settled for family law. When you started practicing, how difficult was it for you, especially having not practiced before and all that years have already gone by? How was it for you?
It was difficult. It was difficult, but I mean, speaking to me, you've probably already understood that I don't shy away from challenges. For me, a challenge is an opportunity to showcase your inner strength. And I am a Christian, no excuses, no apologies to non-Christians watching. God loves everyone. I think he loves me more.
I know, me too.
I pray a lot about everything. And I said, and I was praying when I started this law. I said, well, I've gone to law school. I'm not dumb. God, you are the author of wisdom. And I have all of these experiences. I can speak, not because I know how to, but the experiences you've given to me will help me, help me help these clients. And as I prayed, something just came to my mind, and it was this: David had no experience slaying giants. And that just was like push. It was like the push I needed. And I just went headlong. And every time I come across a challenge, I don't know where that word came from, but I want to believe it's the Holy Spirit speaking to me to say, go ahead. Every time I meet a challenge, I'm like, David had no experience slaying giants. But he knew how to slice and dice the giant because there was someone behind him. And so that was how it, if I call a lawyer and say, this is the kind of case I have, can you help me? In fact, one lawyer said, I've been in practice for almost 8 years. The kind of cases you have, I've never come across them. So I will laugh. I will Google, I mean, there are days I was at work till 1 a.m. And that's why it's very important to have a vision that is aligned with your spouses. And if you are not married, then you must have a great support system, whether a best friend, whether a friend, a sister, a brother, someone that supports you, that is your cheerleader. My husband, who is also a lawyer, will close from his Toronto office and come to the Oakville office where my office is located. He will wait at home, 10 p.m. You're still at work. I'm like, I have a trial in 2 days. I'm still working on this, I'm working on that. He'll come to my office and then he'll be making prints for me and binding them together and putting them just how I want them. And sometimes we will leave the office at past 12. But I could go that far because of him. Right? So he helped me a lot, supported me, always cheering me on. And so it was challenging, but I relied on God and I still do rely on God. So yeah, that was how I was able to.
That's awesome. So now I'm gonna go back to the fact of there are a lot of people that probably have the same trajectory as you. They never practiced. They had their law school. They never practiced. They came here, tried to get a job. They couldn't find one. They decided, you know what? I have my license. Let me, start practicing. And let's say they're watching us today now. Do you have like an avenue where you get to mentor people, especially people maybe that want to practice family law? And are you open to mentoring people, or not to put you on the spot?
No, it's actually not putting me on the spot. Many people that know me know that I am happy, more than happy to mentor people. Lawyers call me. I'm passionate about foreign lawyers. I don't think they should go through the things we went through when we began practicing. You guys have what you call Nigerian lawyers in Canada now. We had no such thing. It was every man for himself. There was no support system whatsoever, right? Or support groups, I should say, rather. And so if there's any way I can contribute to someone's success, I am more than happy, because at the end of the day, if that lawyer is on the street and they're doing well, there's going to be the narrative that that's a Nigerian lawyer. And at the end of the day, it's a Nigerian thing, right? It's a Nigerian lawyer doing well. And that's a thing of pride, because when they see me in court, they go, I know that Nigerian lawyer. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's right.
And so bit by bit, we can become a force to be reckoned with. And that's my prayer, that, there's a lot of negative rhetoric and narrative about Nigerians and I think it also comes from a lot of ignorance, because you don't group the whole people. It's not even Nigerian that is bad, or do all of that. So I'll be happy, more than happy, to mentor people, to take questions, to offer any help, assistance I can.
Okay, so just so you know, I'm also one of those people. Now come and be your mentee. Because funny enough, I also practice not a lot of family law, because anything that is like very, I think I do other aspects of law faster, but anything that has to take 2 years, 3 years for you to finish is kind of scary for me. So I'm going to be coming to you for estates and family law matters.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
No
Again,
worries.
all my witnesses, write it down, stamp it.
You are such a lawyer. You're such a lawyer. You and this your witnesses.
We are following your footsteps. Okay, so let's talk about the very exciting part. We talked about your background, we talked about your professional background as well. Now we're going to talk with Mo.
Oh,
And this is
yeah.
something that actually did attract me to you. And I want you to give us, like, how, first of all, the name, how you came about the name. Second of all, what was the inspiration to start the show? And then the third of all is, how has it been, the journey so far?
Great. So start with the name. My name is Modupe. I want people to talk with me.
Mm,
And there's a difference between talking to and talking with. When you're talking with us, it's more inclusive. We're friends, we're talking. And that was what I wanted to portray. That was a picture that you're talking with a friend, the kind of things you may not necessarily say to others, but I want you to be speaking to a friend. And so that's where the name Talk with Mo came about. And the inspiration for it is actually, I'll say it's divine, it's God. Like I say, I'm an introvert. I excel at spaces like this where it's just the two of us. One on one, I'm great. If it's a big audience, uh, I'm very uncomfortable with big audiences. I think a fun fact about me is I do not like malls. I
mm,
can't deal with malls. I can't get into malls. I get panic attack just seeing people. I panic and I run back into the car. So that's a fun fact about me. But so it's divine because I think over the years, the relationship I've had with my clients, apart from being a lawyer, being doing this talk show, I also lead a Bible study fellowship, which is called BSF. Many people might know it's Bible Study Fellowship is worldwide, is headquartered in San Antonio. But I lead the class in Oakville, and the size of that class is about 450 people. And I've been leading that class for the past 5 years. So imagine leading that kind of class where you meet ladies, it's a ladies and children's class. So you meet ladies, I mentor a lot of ladies, and I've heard a lot of life stories. That's
mm,
life-changing stories from many of them, divorces, illnesses, different challenges of life, death. And so, hearing all of that, and when I mentor them or I say to them, I am so sorry, you know what? This is not unique to you. They go, what do you mean it's not unique to me? So I said, oh no, I'm actually mentoring someone right now who's experiencing something very similar. If I have your permission, maybe I can link both of you so you can support each other because you're walking on similar journeys. And I can't say I understand how you feel or what you're feeling because I haven't gone on that journey with you. And they're often appreciative. And most times when you pair them up together, the things that happen. And so it's out of that, I felt God saying to me, there are many people going through stuff in life that they're not even aware that other people are going through it. And sometimes they think it's just them. And for some other people, just to talk about it is healing. And so I was like rejecting it. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not me. God, we can't do this. Me, I can't do that because I am introvert. And who's going to even talk to me? Who? Who do I know? But it's persisted for about 4 years. Oh, for 3 years. A friend of my mutual, a friend lost her husband. And for some reason, it bothered me so much. I wasn't close to this person. I had a mutual friend. We share a mutual friend. But for some reason, she wouldn't leave my mind. And so I sent a text to her. No, I didn't send a text. I felt the Holy Spirit saying, reach out to her. And I said, no, it's going to be weird because I'm not close to her. After her husband died, I had reached out, right? I had commiserated with her and I thought I had done what I needed to do. But this was a layer, reach out to her, reach out to her. It was very persistent, and I kept saying, no, 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 no. That same week, this widow reached out to me and said, how are you doing, sis? I just wanted to say hi. And I was like, gosh, you are telling me to reach out, I refuse. Now you send her to me. So immediately I picked up the phone. I said, hi, I'm so sorry. Thank you for your obedience. Because me, I'm a very disobedient person. And I said, I have been having the urge to call you, but I thought it was going to be weird. And she said, yes, that was my thought as well. But the Holy Spirit said, go ahead. I said, you see, you're obedient. Me, they call me many times, I refused. So long story short, I just told her, I said, there's something on mind I'd like to talk to you about. And we just decided, okay, we'll meet next week. Immediately I hung up the phone, the Holy Spirit said, you're going to meet her tomorrow. I'm like, tomorrow, Bao, I'm busy. I'm having this tomorrow. I actually ran into her the next day at a picnic that I didn't think she'd be at. So we sat and had a conversation, and I asked her, I said, how are you? Really, how are you? And she broke down and she cried. And she said, no one has asked me this since my husband passed away. So we spoke for some time, and I said, if I have a platform that is going to go public, would you be willing to speak? And she said, yes. And that's when I knew that God was calling me to this. And that was how Talk with Mo came about. And
awesome.
It's been challenging because I don't know anything about social media and all of that. It's been challenging on that front. It's been challenging because people keep saying you have to grow your subscriber base. I don't know how to do that. And I want people to watch it, but I don't know if the basis is just for them to subscribe. If you're not going to watch it, if it's not going to impact you, I don't know why you want to subscribe. You get, so it's difficult for me, and it's also challenging in the sense that I bought the equipment. I prepared a little studio from my office to do all of that, because to record from studios is going to cost me a lot of money. And the time also, I have to work with the timing of the studio. So I wanted some flexibility. So I bought the equipment, and so it's consumed a lot of money. And each episode takes money because there's a videographer, there's an editor. So all of that. So, but when I look at it, I will say the fulfillment I get outweighs these challenges. My greatest fear was, God, where am I going to get people? But without Phil, he has provided people. People are reaching out to me and saying, hi, I would like to be on your show. That is an answer to prayer. The way people are reaching out to say your show impacted me is fulfilling. So far, it's been a journey.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I remember this particular story you're talking about. I think I also watched that one as well, about the lady talking about her husband's passing and all of that. I did watch it, and truly it was impactful, because she was even surprised that she was able to keep it together while she was talking, because a lot of people would have broken down and would not be able to talk, and it looked like it was still fresh. Yes. At the time. It wasn't something that it was 5 years ago. No. So yes, I did watch it, and it did impact me, and I believe a lot of people were impacted. And truly your production as well, because you said you bought equipment. So it wasn't just a lousy production, it was a production that was well put together, very clear, the audio, the background, everything looked really good and professional. So I believe when it touches someone, good thing about social media is a lot of us share. Somebody shared, that's how I saw it. So some of us share and share and share, and then before you know, it becomes like a big thing. So yes, touching one person, I believe, is awesome. It makes you know that yes, at least I've touched someone, and then it continues like that. So it is awesome. It is, for those of you that don't know it, please Google it, Talk with Mo, and come back to say thank you later when you watch all the stuff, all those videos. If you need something to binge watch and get inspired, please go watch it. Talk with Mo. It is awesome. Also on Instagram, I believe it's talk.with.mo.
That's
So
correct.
please
Yes.
subscribe as well. So this has been awesome. I can't believe it's already 1 hour.
I
So let's
know.
say a lot of people forget everything, or maybe they joined in the middle or towards the end. I want you to give us something key that we should, hold on to, say that for every for all of us that have worked, we want to hold on to that thing that we learned today from you. Just give us that food for thought.
Don't be afraid of challenges. Life is full of challenges. Don't let challenges stop you in your track. I know that for many of us, we're going through some difficult times, some challenging times, whatever it is. My favorite quote, or one of my favorite quote, is Psalm 23, which is it's well known. Psalm 23, verse 3, I think. It says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. What I want to leave you with is, do not sit in the valley of the shadow of death. It says, even if I walk through. So please, whatever you're doing, be moving. Be moving, because the rod and the staff will come and comfort you. Not when you're sitting down. When you are sitting down in the valley of the shadow, what you need is a blanket, because you are comfortable. But if you're walking through the valley of the shadow of the dead, that's when you need this rod and the staff to clear your path so you can keep going. So whatever it is you are facing today, there are tons of resources to help you. There are people that can help you. I went through a time in my life where I thought I was the only one going through this, and I did not want to share. But the minute I shared, oh my goodness, it became a totally different story. So please find that trusted person, share. And sometimes it's easy to walk through the valley of the shadow of death with others. So go ahead, find a trusted friend, a trusted partner, and walk. Whatever you're doing, keep moving.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Like I've never seen that verse like that before. Like I've never thought of it like that, and that's true. Walk through the valley, don't sit in, and that's when you need that rod to clear. I'm going to steal that and keep it in mind. Yes, I'm going to use that all the time because that just changed my mindset about how I saw that verse. It's just something that was a memory verse growing up that I said all the time. But looking at it that way is awesome. So thank you so much that I called on you and you answered. I believe a lot of our viewers today have been able to, learn a thing or two that they can also apply to their lives. And just before we go, I'm going to shout out all of you that marked attendance in the comments. This is awesome. Those of you that don't know, when you come to this show, the way we do it, that we know that you attended, is by leaving your name, your comment, where you're watching us from in the comment section. So thank you so much, Toby Annie from Nigeria. I appreciate you for joining. Ola from Calgary, thank you so much for joining. Babajide Fashora, thank you so much from Airdrie. Datari Anene, thank you from Toronto. Opeyemi Fashora, thank you so much from Calgary. Chris Idoloje, that's my husband. Thank you so much for joining. I think Moyo Emmanuel from Moncton as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Wow.
I really appreciate everyone. I'm going to give you back the rest of your Saturday to go have a good time, whatever it is you're doing. Last 2 weeks I went for what's it called, barbecue. This time around I have a games thing that I have with my friends. I'll also be enjoying. So whatever it is you're doing, I'm giving it back to you. Have a fantastic day.